dirty back in the day in my days in Dallas. 14-time All-Star, 12-time All-NBA, Finals MVP, regular season MVP, and of course the title that he secured in 2011. A very special night in two different places, but we'll go to the American Airlines Center now in Dallas, to where Dirk is what a lot of people think is going to be his final home game. And as we're watching the piece, we've seen him do all types of things all over the court. Griff, I'm going to start with you on this one, because you talked about him being the best shooting center of all time. I mean, we're in an era of positionless basketball, and he was part of the players that kind of ushered in that new way of thinking with him, his ability to shoot the ball being a stretch 4, stretch 5.
Well, there was a time in this league when Dirk was the model of what everyone was chasing. Everybody was trying to find their space 5, their space 4. Back then, we may have even called him Nowitzki, coach, with a V. And I think where we've gotten now, and you called him dirty, Steve Nash was somebody I was with. And
you got a dream in life
each
to know
other
what you
that
want.
too, right? And so hearing from Steve all the things about Dirk's work ethic as a young player, it's not surprising that he developed into what he is. He was obsessed with greatness, and his game and his legacy reveals that.
And Nelly and his staff that went over to see him over and over again. I took a trip to Cologne, Germany, to watch this youngster when the word had gotten out about this young man who was so talented. And you went over and watched him. You knew he was a good player, but you didn't know, watching him one time or this one little mini tournament that they had, that he was this good of a player, was going to be in the NBA making an impact for so many years and be an NBA championship. But Nelly and his staff, kudos to them. They saw it. They followed him enough times, saw him play enough times that they were willing to take that shot.
So in other words, when you first witnessed him, you weren't super impressed, but as Griff stated, he came into the NBA, worked hard, worked at a level unlike any other, and became one of the greatest players. You can make the argument the greatest foreign-born player ever to enter the NBA.
No, because just think about what his skills are and what his athleticism is all about. It's not like he was going to be a Dominique in the gym or a Michael Jordan or a Dwayne Wade in the gym, going around, jumping over the top of people. This was a young man who possessed skills in basketball, shot the ball well, and had great size for his position. How do you know back then how he's going to handle the rigors of the NBA when he was so young when we saw him at that time?
No doubt about it. Now, Griff, when you're scouting players like this now, how is Dirk altered the way you scout players now, seeing what he came from back in the 90s?
Well, one of the things Dallas has done during the time that Dirk has been there is also change a little bit of the paradigm of what you imagine about a kid's body when they come over and where you can take it. Dirk was so lean. You saw in that video footage, he was so incredibly lean. He almost looked unnatural in a way. And what ended up happening was they did such a good job of building on the template of his frame that it changed a little bit of the dynamic of what you believed you could do for a player. And Coach, you mentioned it earlier, but not only did you have to think about the body type and have to think about the skill set, the rule set was different then. You could still put hands on players back when Dirk came into this league. This is a 19-time All-Star. He's been in the league 20 years. I'm sorry, a 14-time All-Star. Been in the league, this is his 20th year, I believe, 19th, 20th year. Game's radically different. And all he did was continue to evolve and grow and get better throughout the vast majority of it, playing in 11 straight All-Star games at one point. That's a rarity.
Griff, think about this. You just said he went from being this rail-thin individual to where they added on to that frame, to look at him now where he is back, shedded the extra pounds that maybe he needed to hold his ground. And he's a very thin, veteran guy in the league going into, 19th season. So he's been there, changed the body type, changed it again at the end of his career.
Well, and the irony is here he is at 40, where he is essentially, he's had a pretty steady progression, right? He's had the somewhat traditional bell curve in and out of the league in terms of his effectiveness. And he has not said he's retiring. We're assuming he is, but he has to have a great deal of interest in getting to pair in the front court with Porzingis, who they just acquired. There's got to be a lot of interest on his part in that, and it's just fascinating to watch Dirk's progression and then see Dwayne Wade, who very much does look like he could still play. Obviously a much younger player, but he looks like he could still play right now at a very high level for a couple years. And Dirk, you're wondering if he's retiring simply because he has had that kind of natural progression. It's really interesting.
It is interesting also. You talked about Porzingis. Now, we all know, well, some of us do know, some of us don't, but originally Dirk was inspired by watching the Dream Team in '92. Saw Charles Barkley wearing 14. He wore 14, flipped it to 41. So moving that forward, just talk about how Dirk has inspired players like his current teammates like Luka, like Porzingis, and future players that want to come to the NBA or have aspirations to be professional ball players because they've witnessed what Dirk has done over his career.
Yeah, we have to remember that youngsters growing up in other countries back when this all started for the individuals that were coming in and trying to make it in the NBA, they got to see an NBA game one time a week maybe. It may have been 5 days later after the game, but that's when it came on that they could see it. Some would have to stay up through the night, middle of the night, their time, to watch an NBA game, what was going on. So they would watch these guys and imagine, and when they saw Dirk make it and make it the way he did, it gave them all hope that, I can maybe do that also. And then the more frequent we got on, it was easier for them to get videos on and on and on to model their games after. But he's one of those pioneers that came in and led the way.
And what a blessing it is, too, to come into the league when he did with a coach like Don Nelson, who was going to give him the runway to be the player he was capable of being. It's impossible to separate Dirk and his growth as a player from that coaching staff and everything that organization did to bring him along. The strength and conditioning coaching, now represented by Casey Smith, who's one of the very best there's ever been in the business. Mark Cuban's dedication to winning a championship and spending the money to win a championship from the middle, which had never been done at that point. Dirk's career in very large measure is about the fact that he was in exactly the right franchise, and the fit revealed itself over and over again throughout his time there. And in terms of young players, the impact he had globally, he's a total paradigm shift. When you were coaching, when you first started coaching, certainly, a big man like that played on the block with his back to the basket, and he was a defensive presence, and you take him off the court if he didn't defend well enough, right? This was what you did. This is how the game was played. Dirk completely revolutionized the position and the way that teams are built. So it's not just kids globally. It's everyone in the game globally that benefited from his presence and the impact he had on it.
Wasn't he part of the three-ball revolution also?
100%.
Because of his ability to drag behind the transition, they'd hit him back at the top of the circle, him stepping into it, and he'd knock down the three, and all of a sudden you started looking at threes going, well, these things really hurt you when guys, when the guys are making them against you.
No doubt about it. You talked about one of the guys he inspired, Luka Doncic. He is probable missed 4 of the last 5 games. Like I said, plenty of former teammates are in the building. I know Sean Marion and Jason Terry, among others, are there to celebrate the legend, Dirk Nowitzki. But what about the other legend in South Beach, Dwayne Wade, a.k.a. D-Wade, still gets paid, getting buckets early. We talked about how he was going to come in. You know about that cut off the curl. And, of course, sharing is caring. Throw it up, give it to Bam.
There's your playmaking. There's your triple-double, Row. He's looking out for you.
Hey, there it is. I want to see that. Looking too easy. Light defense being played by former Golden Eagle Jimmy Butler. We got more game time coming for you.